Project MKUltra, the CIA's mind control project, represents one of the most troubling government-sponsored human research programs in modern American history. Through archival research and investigations by a congressional committee, a highly classified CIA mind control program lasting over 20 years from the early 1950s to mid-1970s has come to light. The program involved surreptitious administration of drugs, chemicals, sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and other means to manipulate and control the mental states and behaviors of unwitting, non-consenting American and Canadian citizens. Though the factual details remain limited even after declassification of relevant documents, the program's existence points to a concerning disregard for ethical constraints in the name of counterintelligence and security objectives. The balance of this essay will analyze MKUltra through an expository lens anchored in known historical facts derived from congressional probes, found in declassified CIA files, witness testimony from involved parties, and reputed journalistic investigations aggregated by academics studying the case. The analysis aims to educate and foster dialogue through examination of relevant evidence without speculation or subjective assessments of institutional or individual culpability. Welcome to Top Thangs. Dive deep into the shadows of history with us as we uncover the chilling truth behind Project MKUltra, the CIA's clandestine program aimed at mastering the art of mind control. Through the veil of secrecy, we explore the unethical experiments conducted on unwitting subjects, revealing a dark chapter in the annals of government espionage and psychological manipulation. Origins and objectives. Most evidence indicates that Project MKUltra formally commenced in 1953 under the authority of the CIA's director, Allen Dulles. Drawing partially on captured documents from wartime and post-war interrogation programs of defeated Axis powers, the agency launched a special operations division focused on behavioral research and modification. Goals included developing techniques for eliciting intelligence from unwilling subjects, weakening the resolve of agency targets through sensory deprivation or administration of psychoactive substances, and testing theoretical concepts for mind control rooted in behavioral psychology and psychiatric conditioning principles. Agency personnel would determine specific objectives under the MKUltra umbrella on a case-by-case basis, depending on perceived operational needs and priorities. However, consistent themes recurred around breaking down human willpower and radically altering mental states through combinations of pharmaceuticals and coercive conditioning techniques. That the program operated under the highest classification levels points to an acknowledged need for secrecy even within standard intelligence practices of the time, due to the sensitivity of seeking to override consent and individual agency. The premise that counterintelligence goals could justify means deemed necessary and efficacious for agency objectives created an oversight grey area the CIA leveraged in launching MKUltra with relatively little supervision or transparency. It purposefully recruited prominent psychiatrists, medical doctors, and other clinical experts using oblique references to confidential research on behavior modification, underwritten by convoluted funding chains, insulating the CIA's central role. Key figures and institutions. A 1977 joint hearing before the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and Subcommittee on Health and Scientific Research identified Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, director of the CIA's Chemical Division, as the program originator and leader, as well as chief intermediary between the CIA and contracted medical institutions, who carried out individual projects under MKUltra's umbrella. Gottlieb and other Chemical Division personnel approved and funded these project proposals upon determination that their goals could align with CIA objectives around breaking down human subjects' patterns of resistance. After 1953, the program quickly expanded in scope across numerous academic and clinical institutions, who may or may not have realized their funding derived from a CIA effort rather than other stated benefactors. Pronounced examples with verified CIA contractual relationships for at least parts of their behavioral activities in the 1950s and first half of the 1960s included Boston Psychopathic Hospital, Butler Health Center, Columbia University Department of Psychiatry, Emory University Hospital, Missouri Institute of Psychiatry, University of Illinois Medical School, University of Oklahoma School of Medicine, Princeton University Department of Psychology, and Stanford University Chemical Engineering Department. Both during MKUltra operations and after subsequent declassification, the CIA maintained that these external contractors determined their own research protocols based on established academic, medical, and clinical approaches rather than agency directives. However, their status as CIA-funded made agency personnel complicit to some degree, even in cases where they did not actively participate in human subject testing or experiments relating to mind control applications. The financial resources and institutional backing provided by the CIA at minimum enabled the direction, if not the execution, of experiments that disregarded ethics of consent and human rights in their methods. Known experiments and procedures. While factual records remain far from complete decades after MKUltra shut down, several pilots and procedural approaches have come to light through declassified documents, institutional audits, and witness admissions, highlighting the disregard for constraints and ethics in some CIA-backed experimentation. Two MKUltra-affiliated psychiatrists, Dr. Ewan Cameron and Dr. Harris Isbell, conducted particularly troubling programs of long-term experimentation backed by CIA funds channeled through intermediary organizations. Dr. Cameron, without subject consent and with funding allocated by Gottlieb, instituted a depatterning technique at the Allen Memorial Institute of McGill University that systematically disoriented patients through sensory deprivation, pharmaceutical stupefaction via paralytic drugs, and repetitive induced comas over weeks and months. Regimen aimed to break down memories and conditioned responses over extended washout periods, so CIA could theoretically implant new behavioral responses post-dismantling of existing personality. Patients experienced lasting trauma and disorientation rather than programming improvement. Dr. Isbell, as Director of Research at the Addiction Research Center, operated a CIA-backed human experimentation program through the 1950s and 1960s, examining mind-altering impacts of various drugs administered at maximum and prolonged dosages without patient consent. At least one subject, Harold Blauer, died as a direct result of these experimental injections. Patterns of unethical chemical interrogation continued over entire span. MKUltra remained operationally active. These two cases highlight extremes of the programmer, although dozens of additional programs pursued CIA objectives through generally questionable means involving manipulation or violation of research subject consent and human rights. That Gottlieb and other leaders sanctioned these pilots under the mission of MKUltra is evident in the documented authorization trails to channel funding, but claims that they did not actively direct experiments shields the CIA itself from fuller culpability. Nevertheless, its financial and institutional backing catalyzed human rights breaches in many cases. Discovery and aftermath. Rumors of CIA-backed brainwasing programs circulated for many years, but evidence remained slim and discussions speculative until the 1970s revelations. After MKUltra director Gottlieb ordered all documentation destroyed as the program wound down, a clerical error in filing prevented the obliteration of one collection of MKUltra financial records and proposal details. Through this loophole, an agency audit first uncovered officially documented trails that paved the way for subsequent congressional probes once intelligence oversight committees formed. Most damning, a 1953 MKUltra project proposal detailed intentions to covertly dose unwitting subjects with LSD to assess mind control capacities, until then only vaguely hinted in recovered financial invoices. Shock over the reputed MKUltra scope and intentions combined with this first evidence of planned narcotics deployment sparked a series of Senate and medical reviews between 1975 to 1977. Sworn testimony by CIA operatives, doctors, and victims presented at agency hearings introduced histories and procedural details from MKUltra that caused both public outrage and legislative backlash, even if large intelligence gaps persisted. Through these reviews, Congress formally established restricts prohibiting agency-backed human experimentation now codified under Advisory Committee medical oversight protocols, though some critics argue safeguards limiting future recurrence remain inadequate. Surviving victims have also sued the CIA for recognition and damages given profound personal impacts. While discourse and reconciliation efforts continue today, the incompleteness of documentary evidence, untraceability of some human research subjects, and CIA's recalcitrance to submit to full external investigation all hamper transparency while cementing MKUltra's notoriety. Unresolved elements ensure its status as both an institutional rebuke and proof for those advocating conspiracy assumptions, highlighting the risks of excess and of corner case secrets in the name of security. But the exposed corruption of medical ethics and the targeting of unwitting citizens for involuntary long-term experimentation represents MKUltra's most alarming legacy, with lessons still under examination by legislators, policy critics, and investigators to this day. Published investigations and official findings. While original MKUltra documents were largely destroyed in 1973 as the program shut down, subsequent journalistic exposés and an official US congressional review brought substituted primary source evidence to light in compiling authoritative summaries of MKUltra's operational essence, ethical breaches, and troubling practices. These published findings lend further credibility to the known facts. Church Committee Review. A 1975-76 Senate review, chaired by Senator Frank Church, denoted its investigative findings on Project MKUltra as demonstrating a sophisticated and deliberate effort by the CIA to conceal any record of their having sponsored such research. This included utilizing obfuscatory funding channels and relying on operational secrecy to hide the agency's central role. Verified experiments were dubbed extensive in their violations of bioethics, given lack of consent. Journalist Investigations, John Marks, 1979 publication, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, collated various personal interviews and leaked classified documents. His assessment concluded that the overwhelming majority of the researchers and physicians who participated in the MKUltra experiments performed as honorable scientists adhering to the protocol of their time. But that protocol permitted deception, secrecy, and malevolent acts in the name of national security. He spotlighted the exception of Ewan Cameron, whose torturous experiments could never yield scientifically useful results, given extreme repetition of psychic driving techniques. Other investigations portrayed similarly alarming dimensions hidden beneath codenames like MKUltra. Gordon Thomas's Journey into Madness, 1989, called the CIA's mind control operations an immensely sophisticated and successful assault on the human psyche, jointly enabled by cooperative contracted psychiatrists. While mired in essential unknowns of destroyed records, journalistic probes universally highlighted the profound ethical compromises of MKUltra, even if some subset of researchers operated under prevailing assumptions rather than anti-democratic intents. Though factual gaps persist, these journalistic and congressional reviews bolster understanding of MKUltra's contours through further evidence and on-the-ground historical investigation. They supplement the archival record by spotlighting willful secrecy and surfacing supporting documents that escape deletion. And most critically, their findings reaffirm egregious ethical violations hidden from view behind the cloak of national security priorities. Final thoughts. Throughout its 20-year span of activity, CIA Project MKUltra violated modern standards for transparent and ethical approaches to human subject research in government-funded initiatives through its pernicious objectives, unproven methods, and operational secrecy involving unwilling subjects. Rationalizations rooted in perceived threats to national security interests cannot fully explain the willingness to contravene long-established bioethical constraints, as demonstrated in certain MKUltra experiments. The program should therefore stand as a warning, even decades after public discovery, that secret projects can breach public trust when not checked by clear policy restrictions and independent oversight. While some documentation and testimony on MKUltra has reached the public since initial Senate hearings, critical knowledge gaps likely hide even more troubling and dangerous dimensions of mid-century covert research that aim to control the human mind. And the CIA's long post-discovery reluctance to fully disclose records rightfully breeds public distrust, given the horrific partial picture of non-consensual long-term experimentation, debilitation, and manipulation that emerged despite most operational details remaining classified. There may be essential nuances behind the agency's willingness to enable such an effort unseen to those without high security clearances. But MKUltra's lasting legacy centers on the sobering reality that democratic governments, when allowed to operate without transparency and ethical constraints under national defense pretenses, can sanction appalling violations of civil rights and liberties while bypassing repercussions. Much progress has been made to curb such potential abuses since the 1970s disclosures and subsequent outrage ended of the program. but lawmakers have also backslid on key oversight provisions, even in recent decades. This is why fact-focused MKUltra analysis remains so vital, not just for historical clarity, but also to fortify public vigilance, policy safeguards, and whistleblower protections that together provide critical friction against any future resurgence of covert operations, running explicitly counter to democratic ideals or bioethical standards. While no nation has a flawless protections record, through constructive dialogue about past failures, we strengthen the foundation on which to build a more just and transparent relationship between security agencies and the societies they ultimately serve. Project MKUltra's exposure has ignited a firestorm of ethical, legal, and philosophical debates, challenging us to reconsider the boundaries of government power, the sanctity of personal autonomy, and the ethical responsibilities of scientific inquiry. What implications does the MKUltra project have on our understanding of free will and personal agency? How can we ensure that the quest for national security does not trample on individual rights and ethical standards? The revelations surrounding Project MKUltra serve as a stark reminder of the perils of unchecked power and the importance of ethical standards in scientific research. If this investigation into the depths of human manipulation has sparked your interest or concern, join the conversation below. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and let's ensure the lessons of the past inform our future. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most intriguing and unsettling topics. Thank you for watching Top Thangs. References: Church Committee Report, 1975-76. Official Congressional Investigative Findings on MKUltra and Other Intelligence Abuses. Comprehensive Report of the Special Committee on the CIA Activities within the United States, 1975-76. Senator Frank Church's Committee Review of MKUltra Origins and Key Facts. Project MKUltra and the Search for the Manchurian Candidate. John Mark's investigative exposé published in The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. The CIA and Mind Control, 1979. Secret Agents, the Rosenholz Files, How a CIA Agent Was Fired After Objecting to Experiments. New York Times investigative story on MKUltra, 1994. Journey into Madness, the true story of secret CIA mind control and medical abuse. Gordon Thomas, 1989.